Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo Mish Mash. This one being broadcast live February 3rd, 2021. We have a great show, not only because we always have special guests, but today we've got a very special guest that I'll introduce in just a moment. But of course, early reviews of the Sony A1, that flagship camera that we spent a good bit of time talking about last week, are starting to trickle out. We're going to see a lot more tomorrow. Hint, that's why we got Drew on. He may have one in his hands. Or had one. I don't know.
It's gone now.
It's gone, yeah. We want to talk a little bit about the R5's value, because I have to say, with a lot of the stuff coming out about the A1, it's looking pretty good too. I got to share, I just got my, I don't even know what number they are, 1099 miscellaneous, my stock earnings from 2020. Some surprises there that I want to talk a little bit about. Plus, chit-chat normal. And of course, in Lightroom, we are going to edit your photos and give you feedback and tips. But as I said, I'm really excited to welcome guests today. I'll start with Steve. Good old standby Steve, who's been with me for ages and ages. Steve, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be here for, a number of reasons, but two in particular. Krystal, I have not been on screen with you before. And so, I mean, this is just a real treat for me. I know there's been times when I haven't been on the show and you've been on. I've had a chance to watch a little bit of that, but it's nice to finally meet you.
Same here.
And Drew, I know, Toby, you're going to address this, but I know we have you for a limited time, Drew, and I'm really happy to have you on the show. We were talking a little bit before we got on air live. And Toby will kind of give you some of Drew's background, but man, I'm a huge fanboy already. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say for a couple different reasons. The Sony A1, but also just given your background and the kind of world that you're operating in is just totally cool to me, and you do amazing work. So thanks for having me on, you guys.
I'm flattered. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. All right, and Krystal, welcome back to the show. You were a fairly regular guest towards the end of last year, and I'm so excited to get you back in 2021. Gives us an excuse to kind of check in, see if you have any goals set for 2021. I know also you've contributed to stock photography too, so when we get to that segment of the show, we'll chat a little bit. But Krystal, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. The new year. I haven't really been doing too much photography-wise besides still photographing my 3 little munchkins. And I just nothing new really, but the kids started school, so I'm excited about that. So yeah.
Exciting. Yeah. And of course, I didn't say this with Steve, but their social media handles are on the screen in front of you, and of course linked right down below this video. You should go follow. Krystal mentioned her munchkin. You have 3 of the most beautiful children in the world, and you take amazing photographs of them. So you should go check out Krystal's Instagram. Just you have just such lovely built-in models. So,
they're pretty great.
That's nice. Good. Yeah. And as I said, special guest, Drew Geraci, who many of you might not recognize the name, but I bet almost all of you have seen at least one piece of his work, and that is the House of Cards intro, that fantastic series of time lapses shot in the DC metro area that opened up the iconic show House of Cards. Drew, how are you?
You know what? I'm doing fantastic. It has been an amazing last couple of weeks, so I'm pretty excited.
Awesome. We met at a Sony event a couple of years ago because you are a Sony Artisan of Imagery or Imagery Artist.
One of those things. All these artisan imageries and words, titles, it doesn't mean anything. It's fine. We're just professionals. That's what we are.
Yeah. And you consider yourself a time-lapse specialist. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's accurate. So, I mean, I specialize mostly in time-lapse photography, but also in cinematography as well. So we're on set doing things for, feature films and commercial production, not just time-lapse.
Yeah, cool. And the reason we're having you on today is, and some folks have guessed this, and we talked a little bit about it already, but you have had your hands on the Sony A1, and tomorrow on your YouTube channel, you will be dropping your review hands-on with high ISO image samples, high ISO video samples, and just lots of goodies.
Oh my gosh, all of the goodies. I'm so excited. If you want the A1 or you're thinking about getting the A1, you should check the review out. But I was totally, this is a candid response, blown away by the A1's quality. Like going into this, when Sony's like, hey, why don't you test this camera out? I was kind of like, okay, I've got the A7R4. It's got great high resolution photos. Got the A7S3. It's great for video. Why do I need the A1? And it really wasn't until I started using it that I'm just like, holy bleep. It's amazing. The image quality for the high ISO and the ability to shoot like 30 frames per second if you're just doing photos. I filled up an entire 160 gig CF Express card in under a minute with full raw 8K photos. It was just insane. So being able to do that, especially if you're a sports wildlife photographer or action photographer, huge props there. But for me, I come from a mostly high resolution background for 8K video and 8K and beyond frames, and having that latitude to be able to do 8K for 4K in post, the image quality is so much better, I hate to say it, than the A7S3. And it also boasts ISO up to 32,000, and it looks beautiful at 32,000. It's highly usable. With noise reduction, it just looks pristine. I don't want to overhype it though, because it's an expensive camera, but
sure,
I was absolutely blown away by it for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, one of the big questions that I've been hearing from folks and people have been asking me, so eventually I will get my hands on one. I do have a pre-order into it.
Good.
It is the most I've ever spent on a camera, but that fact of one camera that can do all of this so well, I'm really excited about, to kind of summarize. But the question of it's 50 megapixels. How is it doing at high ISOs? But you're saying gorgeous.
Yeah, for video, it's absolutely gorgeous. I would say the sweet spot is probably 6,400 to maybe even 12,800. And that's a really acceptable range, which I think is huge. And it kind of rivals that of the A7S3. And then for photo, I would say the sweet spot is probably at 32,000. The image does degrade after you go beyond that, but it is still usable. You can downsample from that 8K to like a 4K or 5K image, and it looks really beautiful.
So it's safe to say one is in your future?
Well, you know what? Originally I wasn't going to buy any. I'm going to buy 3 now. So I'm basically going to get rid of all my S3s and my R4s and R3s and E9s and just consolidate, because this camera literally does it all. It is all of those cameras rolled into one, if not better.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
It's so
funny. Go ahead, Steve.
I'll interject for a second. It's so funny because when that announcement was coming through, I was reading the news and I messaged Toby and said, dude, have you seen? Of course he'd seen the thing, but kind of like, did you know about this? And they kept it really under wraps. Toby, you were saying that it kind of, and you were on a call with Sony when I had texted you. And my next comment was, I'm reading the stats on this thing. You need to sell all of your Sony gear and get this thing.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive. And we'll talk a little bit more, later in the show. But I just wanted to give a shout out for Drew. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
so tomorrow, is there a time that you're going to release this?
Yeah, we're going to be releasing the full review at 10 a.m. as well as 8K sample footage in 8K, so you can see all that footage in its gloriousness. And then also doing a full, just the high ISO for both photo and video, so you don't actually have to watch the full review, because I think it's going to top out a little over 20 minutes. So we're going to kind of section it off. So lots of fun material being dropped tomorrow. Stop on by. Subscribe, do all that fun stuff, but really excited. And thanks again for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it.
You bet. I just thought it was exciting because, like I said, I'm not high enough on the list. I'm not a Sony artisan, and I'm not high enough on the review list to be in that first batch, so it's exciting to get you on. Drew, you've got a lot of great stuff on your channel here. As I said, I'm going to be talking a little bit about stock photos later in the show. You're talking about stock video, which is a huge potential market. And just some of your cool time lapses are on here. I watched Vapor a couple of weeks ago. It's just lovely stuff. It says I'm not subscribed, but that's because I just opened a clean window.
For sure, I got to tell you.
I am subscribed, man. So we're gonna let you go because I know you're in the middle of a bunch of projects, but it's just kind of cool to get a little bit of hands-on sneak peek of that, and we're look forward to your review tomorrow.
I do, and thanks very much for having me on. And good seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Drew.
See you guys.
All right, Drew. Take care. All right. So photorec.tv/Drew, as you saw down there, I made a little shortcut to his YouTube channel. It's called District 7. So, yeah. I think it is going to be a great camera. Two things, though. Of course, yes, he mentioned the price, and two, he also mentioned quickly filling up 160 gig a card.
Yeah.
Shooting 30 frames a second, 50 megapixel images, and you could shoot the uncompressed RAW. You're gonna set aside, hopefully, if you're buying a $6,500 camera, you've got some budget to set aside for the cards, big hard drives, and processing power as well. So, yeah.
Has there been anything coming out? I haven't followed any of the first impression stuff that's come out since the announcement. I just read some articles. Has there been any talk about overheating and some of the things that plagued the Canon when it was coming out shooting 8K?
Yeah. So really, the only full video that I've watched is Tony Northrup's, and you've got two modes of kind of like heat sensitivity in the Sony camera. You can say standard mode, which is when it feels like it's getting too warm, it'll shut off. 8K at about 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
But you can set that to high, meaning the camera will allow itself to get hotter, and then people are saying they're getting up around 2 hours of 8K footage.
Oh, wow.
So it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And this is kind of, I mean, we're talking about it, so let's keep talking about it. I kind of teased this. I think, Krystal, you have a Canon R5.
Mm-hmm.
Still happy with it?
I am happy with it. I shoot the uncompressed RAW, so my files are smaller, so that's been helpful with my storage. So that's the only thing I was really worried about. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good. Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, I had very few complaints about the R5 when I reviewed it, except that it seems a bit more expensive than a lot of the cameras kind of in its price range. Mm-hmm. But now when you look, at least on paper and to some degree in the real world, I think it stands up very well against the A1. Mm-hmm. There are a few key differences that are going to make all the difference for certain groups of photographers, like serious sports photographers. Silent shutter on the Sony A1 is much better than on the R5. But for a lot of kind of the area, the R5 is like, hey, it's pretty good, and it's a lot cheaper than the A1. So suddenly its value looks a good bit better.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Again, as I said to Drew, what I've never spent this much on a camera, But even though there's been cameras like this in the past with flagship 1DX and Nikon D5s or D4s, it's not only that they were expensive, but they also were ginormous, and I wasn't interested in carrying that around as kind of an do-it-all travel photographer. But the fact that all of that power is packed into basically the same size is what's really appealing to me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I do, as I said, I have a pre-order in. I know I'm on the review list. I don't know where I fall, somewhere below Tony Northrup, obviously, and a couple other people as well. So hopefully I'll get it in fairly soon and share some thoughts about it.
Toby, when you get a camera to test out like that from Sony, I know with B&H, I know how that whole thing works, but when how long do you get to keep that product? Are you going to have it when we go to Yellowstone at the end of February, or is that going to be most likely after you return it?
I doubt it, and I'm a little worried because we do have some travel coming up in February, and usually with a hot item like this, your turnaround is very short. Like even Drew, I think he had it for only a couple of days before he had to give it back, and he's a Sony Artisan.
Yeah.
So they are very stingy early on because they want to get it into the maximum number of hands as opposed to a couple of people having it for weeks at a time.
Makes sense.
So typically later when, if the camera isn't a camera or lens isn't a hot item, it's about a 2-week window that you can hold on to something.
Gotcha.
Which is nice. That gives you the time to kind of, really evaluate it, really use it.
Sure.
Yeah. No. All right. Well, having that special guest on threw me a little bit at the beginning, but of course this is the Photo Mish Mash, and of course we have a wonderful chat room that I haven't glanced at yet. But chat, thanks so much for joining us today. Love seeing all of your little voices over there on the side. If you're watching this and you like it, of course, give it a quick thumbs up. And if you are not watching it live, you can still give it a thumbs up. And remember, please give a follow to Steve and Krystal. It's a really nice way to thank them for their time taking their time out of their busy lives to sit down and chat with us a little bit.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that. Thank you, Roy, for the links that are in there. Also, Roy is always good about putting this in there. So my apologies if this is redundant. If you have a question during the broadcast, go ahead and make a comment in there and start it with a Q. So we know it's a question. A lot of those, sometimes we get to them during the show, but a lot of times we save those till the end. We've got kind of a Q&A session at the end. We can address those. So have a question, put a Q, ask your question in the chat room, and we will talk about it towards the end of the program.
That's right. And we mentioned Krystal's beautiful little munchkins. You can hear one in the background from time to time.
Yeah, I'm solo parenting for a little while, so it's distractions everywhere.
Yeah, no worries. So, with the online school, I've had my children home much more than usual. And so that means feeding them. They need to eat like 3 times a day. And if you don't stick to a schedule, they get pretty upset.
Yeah, sometimes more.
I mean, they don't admit that they're upset because they haven't been fed, but they are suddenly like, 14-year-olds like really being mean to everybody around them. And I'm like, oh, I haven't fed you yet. So it's a lot. It's made me really kind of appreciate everything it takes to parent.
Oh, look at that little one. Hi.
Hi, buddy.
So yesterday I was recording a video for Penn, and it was just a screen recording, so you couldn't see me, but the room, I had my office closed, but I was on puppy duty. We've got a puppy that's about 4 months old, and he was great up until about 3/4 of the way through the recording. And this was like take number 4 or something. And all of a sudden I hear this scratching, and I look over. So you can't see me on camera doing this, but I look over and he's like eating wallpaper off of the wall.
Wow.
And I'm recording, I'm screen recording, and I'm terrible at editing video. So, it's just kind of like one shot and then I put an intro to it, and that's it. And I'm like, how do I handle this? How do I yell at the dog and say no, but kind of not have it appear in the video? So give him some hand motions and stuff, and he went away.
That worked.
Doing it, but yeah, if you hear that in the background of the video, about 3/4 of the way through, it's what was I doing? It was how to edit interior space and do windows in Photoshop. So we're doing layer masks.
Cool. Thank you for doing that, Steve. And so Steve is talking about the Pen. Photorec.tv/pen is the easiest way to find out about the community that we run, which is full of educational videos, educational articles, new videos, new articles being added every single week. We've got some fantastic posts coming up from guest instructors as well. And I kind of called this at the beginning, a community. It is a wonderful group of people that are active on Facebook and a forum off Facebook for those who don't love Facebook, which I totally get. But it's a great place just to kind of interact, get feedback on your work, get feedback on editing, post questions that you might have. We're in there, we answer, other people answer, and I love it. So photorec.tv/pen to find out more about that. We are running the special of first year, it's just $24. $24 to access all of this for a full year.
Yeah, David put out a nice video the other day where he's announced some of the stuff that's coming in 2021. So for existing members that see value in it, this is pretty exciting. We've got a lot more guest contributors that are going to be writing articles and doing video tutorials. I've had a chance to view one of Tanya's on layer masks, and it's outstanding. So keep an eye out for that. I don't think that one's been released yet, so stand by for
coming
that.
Soon.
But I'm really excited about the guest contributors that we have and the content that's going to be rolling out this year.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, let's jump into a part of the show that I really enjoy, and that is where you send in images. And again, if you're watching this and you're not a Pen member, if you're a Pen member and you haven't sent images in, I love it when I see new names. It's always fun to see kind of our regulars, but it's great when we see, here's a first-time submitter. We give you feedback on these images, and if you're not a Pen member, you can find out how to submit and all of that information, as I said, at photorec.tv/pen. So let me minimize this. And to follow up on last week, for anybody who wasn't here, This sitting over here to the side. Oh, now I'm gesturing and you can't quite see, can you? What do you see? Okay. Right here is my MacBook M1 Air MacBook. I did release my video this weekend detailing my experience with it. I talked about running the show on it last week. Streaming right now, the bottom of the Mac is barely warm. Like, I wouldn't even want to sip my tea on it. It wouldn't even warm up my tea. They've done a fantastic job. The only downside is the dongle hell, excuse my language, that I'm living in, because you only get 2 ports. And right now, to run a show like this, I need Ethernet. I need 3 USB plugs, camera, microphone, and a drive. So that's a downside. But I am really impressed with this machine, and it's pretty good. So it actually runs smoother to do this segment of the show than my iMac over here. So
that's impressive.
Yeah.
And that's the Air, right? The M1 Air, you said?
That's the Air. Yep, with just 16 gigs of RAM. And Piero, if you're watching, you asked me, I'll comment and reply and comment on the video. You said, well, how does it handle on really big files that you know you're maxing out the RAM? So I opened up the Photoshop PB file. That's for epically large files. That is for my Seattle print that's upstairs. That is a 6 gigabyte file. And I opened that up, and it's perfectly workable. There is some catching as you zoom in or zoom out. It's not super smooth, but I did a sky replacement on it, and it wasn't instantaneous, but it worked. It worked quite well.
Impressive.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I'm in the market for a new laptop, so that's good.
Yeah. And have you been Mac user or?
Yes, my laptop now is a MacBook 2014, 2015, and the kids have destroyed it, so I don't
So I know we're a little on the side, but let's continue that conversation for just a minute, because here's what I hear so often. And it's kind of why I wanted to dabble in Windows a little bit, was like, it seems like the value on the Windows side can be better. But so many people have commented, and Steve, I know you, Krystal, you just said, and myself, we all have these old MacBooks that for the most part are still doing a decent job 5, 6 solid years later. And I just don't see too many Windows laptops lasting that long, that well.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I've got a MacBook Pro. It's the same as yours, Toby. I think it's mid 2014.
yeah,
It's
that's right.
it's the I think it's all SSD, 1 terabyte. I mean, it was the top of the line at the time that I bought it. It was an expensive machine, but here we are, 2021, and it works just fine. I hardly use it these days because I haven't been on tour, but I do want to replace it. Mainly because I just want something smaller and lighter. The MacBooks have become a lot thinner, a lot lighter, especially when you get into the Air for travel, because this thing was just, with all my other gear, was starting to kind of be a boat anchor with the amount of travel I was doing. But this past year, it would have been silly to invest in that because I just wasn't getting out in the field, so I'm using my desktop. But yeah, it's pretty amazing to have a computer from 2014 that works perfectly well, 7 years later.
Yeah. And that's a large number of the comments on my YouTube video about this are similar. I have this older Mac. It's starting to be a little bit slower, and they're all in that range of like 2014, 2015. So a solid 5, 6 years or a little bit more folks have gotten out of their laptops. And I don't mean to be an Apple evangelist here, because but I think the value is great, and the new M1s, I think the value is really impressive. So, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, let's dive in. I'm gonna let's see, so we could solo this. First up is Jody Reese's. This looks like a magnolia flower to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Now I will say that with the Mac, the screen real estate is a little bit smaller. Let's see. That's about as. I'll get us there, and then here. So. Jody, I think I'm going to assume that this is edited. You cut this out and put it on a black background.
You think
but it doesn't.
did she mask around it maybe, or is it cut out?
I'm not sure. One or the other. I think our end result is similar, but I'm just going to say it doesn't instantly feel that way to me, except for down here at the bottom a little bit because it feels a little abrupt. But gosh, the detail on this flower and the light, it's always a little tricky working with white flowers because it's very easy to kind of overexpose and lose detail in there. But really, really nicely done.
I would still consider, Jody, nice work. I think as far as a wow factor and what we're doing on this show, this is a beautiful piece. I think if you were going into competition or something like that, some of these technical issues on the edges you really have to be careful about, like Toby said. And also to Toby's point about working a white flower, especially when it's got a black background, every little bit is pretty critical in retaining the detail of the petals. So I would actually consider bringing highlights down even a little bit more if you can, maybe paint on a reduction in highlights. And there's kind of a blue tone to the white that I would be careful about. It kind of takes away from some of the warmth that you're seeing in the flower on the inside. So I would probably reduce the saturation of the blues and maybe up the luminance of it to make them a little bit brighter. But I think if you do those minor tweaks, it would just fine tune it a little bit more. And I think it's an absolutely beautiful picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love, really nicely chosen aperture here. Your depth of field is just great. Krystal, anything you want to add? Anything jump out at you for this?
I mean, I just love, I love the simplicity. I love the, I love the border she put around it too. Just kind of makes it pop out. I mean, in the aperture, I was looking to see the settings and great settings.
Nice job, Jody. Very nice. All right. Lori has hammer time. Thinking, referring to this guy right here in Bryce Canyon. Like it. I like clever little titles.
Well, I'm a big closet MC Hammer fan, so I love the title.
You got some parachute pants in that closet there?
I might have had a pair back in the day. They weren't as crazy as his gold ones in some of his videos, but remember the company California Hardware? Did you ever know those pants? It may have been a California thing. They were pretty similar, and anyway, we won't go down that path.
Krystal, any parachute pants in your history? Your past?
No, not in my past.
Okay, too stylish for that. So, all right. So Lori says, yes, that's Thor's hammer there on the left here in Bryce Canyon National Park. And it's very cool. I love that it breaks the horizon. And I like that it's a very interesting element balanced with the sun starburst over on the right-hand side. So I think that was a nice choice to set that up.
Yeah.
The light through that canyon there on that left-hand side is just really nice, and you've done a good job of balancing the shadows over on the right, kind of warming them, I think, a little bit. All very, very nice.
Toby, can you, well, my question for Lori is, are you on a tripod here? I'm going to assume so because you're 1/20th of a second, but, or it's 1/20th, yeah.
Yeah.
But that always has me concerned if it is, in fact, handheld, is it sharp? It looks sharp from afar.
It's sharp, yep.
Yeah, okay. And I know a lot of you out there have a steady hand. You can shoot 1/20th of a second. It's nothing to worry about. I'm not that good. I need a 1/60th or faster. Otherwise, I just don't trust myself. So, yeah, she's probably on a tripod. And if not, then she's super stable. But no, this is nice. I think the only thing that is kind of throwing me off a bit is you have a pretty dark shadow that comes across the bottom of the image. And I'm kind of perplexed on what to do with that. Either maybe bring the crop up, but then you're going to start cutting off that tree down there, or maybe you brighten it just slightly. I like the fact that there's a shadow there. It's obviously direct light coming down, but I may consider brightening it up just a little bit because it's definitely a pretty dark part of an overall bright image.
Yeah. when I hit crop, Lori, you sent a D&G in. Thank you. I love that because we get to see your edits and your crop from the original. I actually want to come back down just to give that tree, because I feel like it is an element in the frame. It's you mentioned it's kind of a dark tree. It grabs our eye a little bit. It felt just a little abrupt when your crop was right around here. And I'd like to come down just to give it a little bit more space.
Yeah.
And then maybe probably brush would be the best thing. Let's see if we can brush in a little bit of shadows up and warmth up and down here on this, and see if we can just make it a little bit less.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
Harsh. No,
Because you
I
want
think
it
I
to
probably
still show
overdid it.
shadow, but yeah.
Yeah, just to soften it a little bit. Yeah, nice. Looks good. Thank you, Lori. We're going to move on. Mike's got Rocky Butte Sunrise.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, nice tones in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mike, I wonder if this is from the same. You had a shot we looked at 2 shows ago or so that had very beautiful kind of sunrise tones looking over Portland. And this strikes me as having some similar feeling to it.
The one, Mike, I don't know how savvy you are in Photoshop, but what I would highly recommend doing, only because once you notice it, you can't stop seeing it. There's kind of this streak that runs across the sky, and it starts on the right side, right from the light, and then it runs all the way across. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that pretty early on, and my eye just keeps going to it. So I would go into Photoshop, and I would just clip that out of there. It's actually a very, very easy heal that you can do. Just use the heal brush, click on one side of it, hold your shift key down, click on another side, it'll draw a straight line across, and it should do a really nice job of plucking that out of there. I might also consider on the light itself, it's hard to tell on my screen, so I could be totally wrong here. I would consider warming it up just a little bit. There seems to be a slight sort of green tone that's coming from it. Maybe it's just I think warming it up just slightly might, because the rest of the image is so nice and warm aside from the bluer sky at the very top. And I think if you do that, I mean, this is just a very pleasing photograph to the eye. But for sure, I would get rid of that streak across the sky.
So I just threw a graduated radial filter over that, warmed it, and also moved the tint into the red a little bit, which, remember, don't always think of it as actually adding red. It's also subtracting whatever color you're moving away from. So
and that could be why it looked a little green, because all around it in the background is that pinkish red, tone. Mm-hmm. So even if it's not there, it's going to kind of look that as a contrast to what's behind it.
Yeah. Quite nice. Or you like all of the space above? I'm curious what a 16:9 would look like here.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah,
works too. All right. Thanks, Mike. Let's move on. Another Mike D. Mule Deer. Is it black and white? It says it's black and white, but is it treated with that kind of blue sepia? What do you call that? Let me see here. What if we...
Oh, that's selenium. Was it selenium?
Yeah, I don't know either. Right? Does it look... Is it me? Am I crazy? Or does it have...
It looks very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Down here. So, Mike, you attempted this kind of, I think, basically this is using the color grading panel to do what the old panel did of this kind of idea of split toning, of moving your shadows down into the blue realm and moving your highlights up. Very complementary, or actually, what's the opposite of complementary colors? Or is that complementary colors? It's that kind of blue teal editing. And I don't love it here, Mike. I think this is a great shot. There's some great detail here, but I don't know about this feeling. Other opinions?
I mean, I see where he was going, trying to give it like this vintage look, but I mean, I don't think it works well with this shot. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Lovely shot, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm not into the whole blue thing, the coolness of it, basically, because it is such a great shot. You want to spend time looking at it. And when it's really cool like that, it doesn't feel approachable at all. I just kind of want to move my eyes on. It feels cold, unapproachable, kind of scary. It creates tension. And I want you guys to think about, like, any of you watch the TV show Ozark? They use that blue sort of filter throughout most of the show, which creates a lot of tension in the show. And for those of you that have watched it, I mean, it's a super tense show, but they also do that cinematically with that sort of blue filter. And that's the same sort of feeling you get when you see it in a photograph. And with a picture like this, I hate to say it, but I kind of want to see a nice, fluffy, soft little deer that I can come up and hug. It's a great shot. So I wouldn't have done that blue cool tone. I like where you're going here with the warmness. Or go black and white. I mean, that, standard black and white would look beautiful. Maybe throw some heavy vignetting on there to really make them just sort of pop off of the background. So it's a great shot. I would just kind of stay away from that blue tone.
Yeah. I think that blue tone can work well in kind of the cityscapes and some portraiture. But I think, I agree with you guys. Yeah. Nice, Mike. All right, we got another. Pam Case has submitted. This is actually, is this the same type of flower? It almost looks very similar to Jody's flower, but of course at a very different angle. And Pam, I always have to check when you submit. Do we have... Oh, yeah, Pam, it's a good size. Pam Case, you got in a good size image. Thank you. Love it. Love it. This is Krystal, you talked about loving the simplicity of Jody's that we opened with. This takes that to the extreme. How do you feel about it?
I like it. I do like it. I wish there was maybe a little bit more of the petal in there. I just feel like it's very close to the edge. I see what she was trying to do, like the detail shot, but I feel like I need just a little bit more around it.
A little more breathing room.
Yeah, just a little more breathing room. Yeah. It's very pretty.
Yeah, I like it. I can see what you're saying, but I think it's definitely a really neat, very tight shot that might make people go for a minute. Like, is that a sea urchin? What is that exactly? And then I think you could probably kind of puzzle it out. But as you said, Krystal, maybe a little bit more of the petals would instantly clue you in.
Yeah, I agree with Krystal. A little extra breathing room on that left-hand side would probably look cool. But Pam, I mean, first of all, thank you for the large file size. This is beautiful. And you did a really nice job with this. I really, really love this photograph. So I just want to give you some kudos here. So this is well done. And I like, especially if you put it kind of in contrast to what we looked at with Jody's picture, and Jody's was great, but I love how you filled the frame with this scene. I think it looks totally cool this way.
Yeah. So I think the black and white works really well too. Really allows us to focus on kind of that interesting texture of the center part of the flower, and then all the petals in their softness just kind of fall off to the side.
You can do something really cool with framing, and I mean that's wall worthy, as I call it, right there.
Yeah. Thank you, Pam. All right, and finally we're going to finish up with Paul Anderson's. No title, so I'll call it Wet Happy Dog.
Oh, he's a good boy.
Yeah, he's a good boy. It's very nice. So I mean, I know. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh no, I have an emotional attachment right away to this. I'm a huge dog fan. Most of you know that. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that this should be a black and white, though. I really do. There's a lot of blue, really teal kind of blue around the dog. You've got a green and brown background, and you've got all the warm tones on the dog himself. And I just think doing a really cool black and white will help you focus on the texture and some of the wet fur and the dry fur and the wrinkles in the dog's shoulders and his eyes, and take away all the distraction of the different colors that are around him. So, and like you're doing here, I like this much better as a black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know for something like PPA, you know, we spend a lot of time really cleaning this up. We've got bits of this brushy stuff poking out of the water near him.
Yeah.
How much does that bother you?
Yeah, this, I don't want to sound harsh here, but it's Paul. Paul is an absolutely incredible photographer. I love his work. I love this picture, but this wouldn't be a competition picture. There's a lot of other elements that are in here, and I've said this for years. You know, the photos that I submit to competition, they're not necessarily my favorite photographs. They're not. I don't have any of my competition photos up on the wall in my house, but I have a bunch of other pictures that I've done up on the wall. So, if we kind of put it in that category of competing with PPA, I don't think this is an image that you'd go with. But as far as making it sort of tell a stronger story about the dog, I think when going in black and white even helps you to not notice all the little, branches and twigs and stuff that are coming up through the water. It really anchors me down into the dog's face and the dog himself.
Yeah.
And it brings out the nice textures as well.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. Good point. Yeah. I think when you go black and white, these fade into the background a bit because they're not this contrasting color against the green or the blue of the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. We're coming back to us. And thank you, everybody who submitted your images. Always appreciate that. And I hope you appreciate the feedback we're giving. And again, if you're watching this show and you haven't yet, give Krystal, or I was going to say, give the show a thumbs up. And Krystal doesn't know if you're giving her a thumbs up or not. Go follow her on Instagram. Check out her website full of beautiful children, her beautiful children. And give Steve a follow as well.
Hey,
Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say we got a little gap.
What's that?
You were doing well on posting on Instagram for a while now, and it's got quiet again. But that's just my thing I've made on this show to give you a hard time about that. So
it's fine. I got thick skin, especially with you. I can't wait to get on tour with you. We were kind of going back and forth with some old jokes the other day, and it just made me smile. I'm so looking forward to that.
Tired old jokes.
You should see Toby and I rooming together, man. This stuff just never seems to get old. Years of travel in the world. But I did want to make a comment because Tanya, I think, put a really nice comment in the chat room after I was talking about Paul's photograph and competition and editing and stuff. And she just said, I don't want to let competition shape my work, and I like competing. And I totally agree with that. I'm somebody that does like to compete. It's important to me each year. I love being part of PPA's image competition. And I really, really enjoy the work that we do with Pen to help people get ready to compete or prep them to compete. However, like Tanya said, I wouldn't want that to shape your work completely. I don't want that to become your artistic voice. You're just a competition photographer. If that's what you want to do, then great. But I think it's important to say that because what we're striving for eventually is you got to produce images given certain rules and foundations and stuff like that. And if you want to break those, that's fine. But it's important to know what you're breaking. But beyond that, we want each person here to have their own artistic voice and do their own thing. So thank you, Tanya, for saying that. And I just kind of wanted to reiterate that on the show.
Yeah, that's well said. And that makes me think of, and Krystal, I wonder this about you. I find myself out in the field shooting for Instagram more than I like. Thinking about a vertical, kind of format for a shot that I'm looking at because I know that will be best on Instagram. Do you have that stuff in your head, Krystal? Or are you like, I'm shooting this the best way for the picture?
When I'm out, I really don't think about whether vertical or horizontal, how it would look on Instagram. I do hate Instagram's vertical crop though when I do shoot something vertical. But I don't go when I'm out. I don't think about how it would look on Instagram with sizing or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel a little embarrassed that I'm admitting this, and I want to get away from it this year, mostly because Instagram is not like the end all be all place to share. I know we want to have kind of a following and get some of those likes, and I want to tease Steve about it from time to time. But it's just another place to put pictures, and having that in the back of my mind sometimes as I'm composing a shot, I'm like, I don't. It's not helpful. So I was curious.
Well, you're not the only one who thinks Instagram is like. I mean, when I do share on Instagram, I do think about, is this going to be a photo that people are going to gravitate to or not? And I think about it that way. But the way I shoot, I don't focus on it in that way. Yeah.
And Krystal, do you feel? Are you able to kind of decide, judge? Do you feel like you say, "Oh, this is going to do well on Instagram," and it usually does?
Sometimes no, sometimes it doesn't. I posted a photo yesterday of just my son's breakfast, and I knew that wasn't going to do very well because people are just used to seeing my kids or me or something on there. So I knew that photo was not going to do well, but I was like, I'm going to post it just because I was proud of it,
Right, yeah. Right.
So I was trying something new. So.
Gotcha. Fun. I was just curious. It's just so, it feels so all over the place these days, and we don't have to really rehash this. I did see a post the other day, though. It had no sources, no information kind of attached to it, but it said now that people saving your post is one of the strongest metrics for Instagram to know that they should share it out further. So that's the number one thing you want to get people to do. Save your post?
Save it?
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah. I say very specific things that usually it's it's a Seattle photographer or a Seattle outdoor enthusiast that has gone on some hike, and I'm like, oh, I want to put that on my list of hikes to do. That's how I use the save function. So I don't know. And again, there was nothing behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tanya says she saves a lot of posts, actually. Tanya, I'd be curious in chat to let us know, are those inspirational? Because that's the other probably for me is some of them are locations I want to visit. Some of them are inspirational.
Yeah, I actually, now that I know that, I think that's super useful because people come in and save inspiration images. And like you were talking about, Toby, that's pretty cool. I don't spend enough time to. And then every time I go on there and start digging around, it's like they've changed something. So an icon is in a different place. And I don't know. I know I just sound like a grumpy old man.
Embrace it, Steve. You are. So go ahead and embrace it.
Yeah, I use the save when I need, if I'm busy doing something, but I'm scrolling through Instagram, but I don't have time to comment, I'll save it in a folder. I have a comment reminder folder that I save photos for that purpose. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Hold on. So I'm bringing up my stock photography. This was kind of a regular part of the show years ago, and then every once in a while we've kind of come back to it. And I teased my surprising 2020 earnings. It's not surprising on how much I made. What's surprising is that I sell images on Shutterstock and Adobe, and I've talked about that in the past. And let me share my screen here again so we can see everything I'm talking about. Let's go to this view right here. Oh, wrong. Hold on. What am I doing? Right here. So, are you seeing what I want you to see? This is what happens when you run two computers at the same time. Yeah, okay. So here's Adobe, and here's kind of an idea of what I'm selling on here. And for those who have followed for a long time, I thought that several Halloweens ago that these kind of artsy candy corn images would sell. Spoiler, they didn't. Not a single download they've been up there for at least 3 Halloweens, maybe more. Nobody wants a reflecty pumpkin? What? It's okay.
Well, we know from the chat room that there are some serious candy corn haters out there. I mean, the people are calling it like the devil's devil's candy or whatever. Like, I had no idea that people had such an aversion to candy corn.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's not the best. I'll agree. So, but so here's a sample of on Adobe, and then here's a sample of what's the best way to see my gallery here? Is it this or is it the catalog manager? No. Anyway, my earnings for both for 2020, Shutterstock was $123.66. And Adobe was $123.81. I thought that was, pennies apart from one another, despite the fact that fairly different. Where catalog manager? And now here we go. Okay, so here's what I have on Shutterstock, and here's what I have on Adobe, and obviously $123 from both equals what, 240. So let's say $250. Not much money. That represents a year worth of selling from both of these places. Now that said, I have not uploaded a single image to them in 2020 at all. So when you think about passive income, well, honestly, it's still not very much.
Mm-hmm. Hey, that's half an Xbox for your kid. Christmas time,
It's true. It's true.
$250 just coming in for doing nothing for the year. That's not bad.
It's not bad. No, let me get my calculator out and figure out what percentage it is of the price of an A1, and then I'll really, get the cost. But
or it's one Hasselblad battery.
Oh
gosh. That's truth right there. Or a replacement GPS unit, right?
Right. No, I don't think it would cover that.
So, so the one I'm proud of here that is this, kind of burrito fixins. I don't think I can get it bigger right now, that I made. And, it's sold enough to definitely cover the cost of all of that meal. Plus then we actually did make it and eat it. And so that was fun experience just to try to do that. I'd never really done food and stock photography in that way before. Others are just kind of travel pictures that I've captured while I've been out and around.
Oh,
and
Shutterstock. I thought you were going to say you ate a polar bear.
Shutterstock is the owl that I've cut out from its background, has been my most popular seller, and then these are in order of sale here. And so I've got that the burrito fixins up there as well. But Adobe gives me a little bit more for being exclusive with the polar bears on the other one. So, but I say this, so yes, it's, as Steve points out, that maybe at the end of the year that is a decent amount for put towards a present or something for a kid. But there's also that feeling of kind of devaluing your work, because honestly, I get the emails, and the most I've seen one of these polar bears go for, if they ask for the biggest license they can get, it's like $3.99. And so there is certainly a part of me that hurts my heart a little bit. Like, I'm selling this for $3.99, this amazing polar bear and this image. So, or you could actually, I think you can buy it for even as cheap as like 99 cents. So just kind of as we check in from time to time. Now, Tanya, Krystal, my apologies. Krystal, you have done stock photography as well. Have you found any value in it?
Well, I've done it through Offset, and I haven't uploaded to them in probably 2 years. So I have not really been focused on that. So I haven't really been earning much. I think I earned for 2 photos last year, I earned 170, I think. So okay. So you sold 2 photos for 170. Tell me a little bit more about Offset. So I had to submit a portfolio for them to even consider me as a contributor. And you upload, and I think some of the rules have changed, but you upload with keywords, and I think I've heard that the more you upload, the more seen you are through their the photos that you submit. So, but like I said, I hadn't uploaded in a few years. So maybe that's possible why my I haven't sold many, because these are all my kids. You can see they're so little, so I haven't uploaded in quite a while.
Yeah, it's so interesting though that you get a little bit of extra effort, it seems like, and also the chance of rejection, but you got accepted, and through just 2 images, you made more than I made from Shutterstock, and selling. I'm not sure, dozens, I would say, over the course of this past year. Right. So the payout is much higher for these individual images. Interesting. Okay.
Well, and Offset looks like it is a Shutterstock company, huh? So it's a similar sort of thing, but just a whole different algorithm and pricing.
Yeah. You said you haven't uploaded in years. Is it something that you would like to get back into, or do you feel like the work to money ratio is just like, eh?
I think if I focused on it, I could probably make a decent amount. I think the year, let's see, 2 years ago, I think in total I've earned like $2,000, a little over $2,000 in the last like 3 years. So I think if I put a little bit more effort into it, I could probably see some benefits from it. So it's possible I'll like, that'll be my focus for this year, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so there's different ways to go. You get a slightly more exclusive route where you're going to get more for your images, or the kind of, I was going to say no offense Walmart, but kind of the Walmart style, which is what I consider I'm doing at the kind of base Shutterstock site where people can buy these for as little as a couple of cents, or at least that's what I get in return for those images there. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I was curious about that. All right, let's move on. One other bit of news, a couple of pieces of news that I wanted to hit. One was, and just a reminder that all of the show notes for the show are linked right down below this video, is we've got some room for hope in the camera industry. DP Review just came out with this is a news article covering CIPA, Camera Imaging Products Association. And it's kind of a discussion about how camera sales and shipments have done in 2020. Spoiler, not very well. Because the camera industry as a whole has been kind of in this general decline because, as we hear on tour so often, people feel like their phones do just as well as taking pictures in a lot of cases. So why buy a camera? But there are some rays of hope here. So overall, in 2020, digital still camera shipments were down 40% by volume from the previous year, down 30% by value. So pretty significant decreases. But they do mention that if you look at January and February of last year, it wasn't too bad. So on top of the camera industry, of course, kind of melting down on their own, we had this pandemic that we're still in. So there is some ideas that these things are going to rebound, and the camera industry will rebound as well. But what I found interesting is in this paragraph here, we have the average price of a DSLR camera shipped in 2020 is less than half that of a mirrorless camera sold in 2020. And taking the value of the shipments divided by units, the average sale price of a DSLR in 2020 was just $387.
Average.
Compared to an average unit sale price of $800 for mirrorless. Wow. This is, and actually, I'm not sure, is this the camera cost to the company, or is this what people are paying? Because that is a very low number that I'm struggling to kind of think of new DSLRs that come in anywhere near that price.
It says average sale price, unit sale price.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think this is like an industry insider article here. So
no,
that is very surprising to me, because what that's telling me is that the people who are buying DSLRs are probably getting, like your Canon, what's their entry level Rebel?
Like a T8i or T7i, yeah.
Yeah, or the S, don't they have like an S1 or something like that?
Right.
Oh yeah, the little guys, yep.
They're kind of getting the Costco special, right? The bundle or something like that. But then the people that are buying mirrorless are more of your serious photographers, and they're buying. I mean, it's newer technology, so it's going to cost more money, probably. But that is just very shocking that the average is that low, because you do still have people that are buying $1,000, $2,500 DSLRs that you'd think would offset the $350, $400 purchases to bring the average up. But to have it that low is shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised. And even $805 for mirrorless, you know, I know the Sony A6000 was over the holiday period was one of the best-selling cameras, because through discounts, that was down in the 400-ish range. And just, you know, basically a lot of people can afford that. It flew off the shelves. So that's balanced very nicely by these higher-end cameras, of course, that are quite expensive and that people are buying. I'd be really interested to see how the A1 sells. You know, I think it is going to sell better than your typical Canon 1DX Mark III and Nikon, because, of course, the size is a bit more approachable and it looks like your kind of more standard run-of-the-mill camera. So people are going to be like, I can put that in my bag. I can take that with me, but it is a powerhouse.
Yeah, Teresa Rice in the chat room has a good point. She asks, does that average include used gear? I'm guessing no.
Yeah, that's my guess too, because this is really about camera manufacturers shipping to retailers.
Yeah, so that wouldn't, but you know, if you start factoring in the KEHs of the world and stuff, but that is surprising.
Yeah. And also just kind of you know, with China and Japan doing a little bit better towards the end of the year with the pandemic, there are some mirrorless shipments to China were flat year over year by volume, but actually up 13% by value. And so that's kind of pointing to those signs that even though things have been pretty rough, they look to be getting better. So that's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. And then what else did I want to talk about? Oh, I mentioned at the beginning when we were talking to Drew, early A1 reviews. There's an embargo where you're not supposed to share any photos or videos from them until tomorrow. So there's going to be a flood of reviews tomorrow that have actual content. I think Drew's is going to do a really nice job of showcasing some of the abilities of that camera. But do keep in mind also, he is a Sony Artisan imager. He's not completely unbiased, but I also trust him. He's a trustworthy dude. But Tony Northrup, and this was Krystal, I was kind of saying, Tony Northrup was pretty down on the A1's focusing in his tests that he shared the other day. He said, I think the R5 is better, basically, to paraphrase. Which is interesting because I've got another friend, wildlife photographer, that has extensively tested the R5 and the Sony A9. And the Sony A9, they felt like was better than the R5 for their bird photography, specifically. Yeah. So I'm really curious to see, and since Tony got his video out early, that's been picked up quite a bit. And that's kind of where that discussion of, well, the R5, yes, looked expensive when it was released, but now is holding its own very solidly against something like the A1. Again, I think in some very specific ways, the A1 is going to solidly beat it. But how many people need those specific ways? Talking about kind of that silent shutter, complete lack of rolling shutter issues with even the fastest moving subjects.
Yeah, I think what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot of Sony shooters like yourself, say, Toby, who want to upgrade to that camera. You might get some professional sports photographers and Olympic photographers and stuff like that decide to pack up their Canon gear or their Nikon gear and just switch everything over to Sony now. But if you're debating between the two, the R5 or the A1, I think that becomes a pretty tough sell. Sony's got great mirrorless cameras with the A7R4 that you can go into where you're kind of more comparing apples to apples in terms of pricing. But yeah, I don't think the A1 is going to just cause people to say, oh yeah, no, forget the R5. I had that on my list, but I'm going to get the A1. I mean, that's a big jump in price. And I'm really happy because, I still have such a soft spot for Canon. I love Canon gear. And I'm so happy to see that the R5 is holding its own. And this probably just strengthens it, to your point.
Yep. It's good. Krystal, did you pick up, I know on your wish list was the 51.2. Have you picked that lens up yet?
I haven't gotten it yet. Still on my list. Yeah.
Still a couple more stock fixtures. And you get there.
Yep.
Yeah, that looks like a lovely, lovely lens. And that, I'm excited to see what else Canon comes out with this year. I did that Q&A video a couple of weeks ago now, and one of the questions was, what do I think is the best wildlife mirrorless camera? And I gave it to Sony, not necessarily because the A9 is absolutely the best over the R5 or the R6, but right now Sony does have, and it's kind of funny to say this, does have the best native selection of lenses for wildlife photographers with their 100 to 400, 200 to 600, 400 prime, 600 prime. And Canon has all of those in EF glass, but they don't have those in RF yet. And the question, there is somewhat of a question. Krystal, do you use any of native EF glass on your RF, on your Canon R right now?
I just got the 85 1.4 EF a couple months ago. So I do use that with the adapter, and it seems it works pretty good with this.
Yeah. You say pretty good. Are you being nice? Is it basically the same, or do you notice a difference?
No, I don't notice a difference. I did use the 85 1.2. I rented that, but I didn't really see a huge difference with using the adapter and just using a native lens at all. Yeah. Pretty smooth.
I think they've done a really, really good job there. And in the tests, I haven't tested all lenses, but the ones I have seem near identical to me. But I don't know if you strap on the 600 millimeter prime from Canon on an R5 with that adapter, and you're photographing a duck coming straight at you. Is there going to be a little bit of a difference there? So I hesitate to recommend until I know or hear more about that. But yeah, kind of impressive. Okay. All right, we're close to wrapping up the show. I got to go check and see if we've got questions in a minute, but I've been meaning to mention this for weeks. It came out January 15th. We had a fairly regular segment of the show where I'd pull the microphone close and I'd say, photos from space. But it has been a while, but this is a cool combination of that because Canon launched a satellite that has a 5D Mark III nestled inside, taking pictures of the Earth. Here's a picture of the satellite. It's kind of a small little thing, and it's flying around there, and it's taking these very high resolution images. And they have a kind of a cool interactive website. I'll say kind of because I thought that you'd be able to click around and see lots and lots of different images it's captured. They really only have a couple so far, and actually, I'm stuck in this image now. I can't get out of here. So we see the snowy Japan image. But the detail is amazing. And the fact that it's taken from space. A lot of this, as you zoom in, it looks the same to me as when I fly on a clear day at 30,000 feet. But yet here this thing is up at 500 kilometers up in space, so 300 miles or something like that. Oh, maybe I have to click the back. Oh, I click right here. So for folks who like that thing, the website is pretty cool, and it does have links into different interactive, and it also tries to, it's funny because it'll bring up a spot and you zoom in and it pretends like you were taking the picture, and then there's this little voice that was like, that's a great picture, even if it's not. But
so cool. I've got a question about that. This satellite, was it launched recently? Do you have any idea? Does it talk about it?
They put it up, I think, in 2017.
Okay. All right. That makes sense then. But even 2017, the 5D Mark IV was out then. I'm just curious why there's 5D Mark III up there. I thought if they launched this thing recently, why in the world wouldn't they have put something in there? If it's going to get press, why not be one of their newer products, unless this is some sort of way of getting people to just, be like, yeah, see, it's a 5D Mark III and it still takes great pictures, so you can still buy their older stuff.
That is a great question. I think it's similar to when we look at what they have on the space station. It's always almost, and what used to go up in the shuttles, a model or two behind because of strict, stringent requirements of thorough testing to make sure that in space it's not going to melt down and destroy something.
Yeah, and the Mark
so I think,
IV was, I think it was mid 2016 is when that came out.
Yeah.
So, they probably had been working on this well before that and were using the Mark III. So, okay.
Yeah. But it's neat, and it's also a great example of, hey, even though the 5D Mark III is older, a couple generations now if you count the new mirrorless, it's still capable of taking fantastic pictures from space. So don't feel bad if that's the camera you have. You've got a space camera now.
My wife and I, this is the one and only time, I can't believe I'm even admitting this publicly, I shot a wedding. I have said since day one of launching my company that I will never, ever, ever shoot a wedding, ever. And I ended up shooting a wedding. It was kind of a COVID thing. These people got ghosted by a photographer, really in a bind. It was a home wedding, very tiny, and everybody was zooming in and stuff. So I did it. But my point is, I brought my wife along with me. I was shooting my 5D Mark IV. She was shooting the 5D Mark III, my older camera body, and it was awesome. She got some incredible pictures using that camera. So, yeah, we talk all the time about all the new gear and this and that. But, 5D Mark III is still holding its own. And I still love my 5D Mark IV. I really enjoy using that camera.
Yeah, it's my story I mentioned. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago about specifically. It's a story about you, Steve. It's a good one, though, this time. We were in Alaska 2 years ago now, August of 2019. Is that right? Photographing the bears and the puffins in flight. And I had the Sony A7R III. You had the Canon 5D Mark IV. And a couple years difference between those two cameras, with the Sony being newer, the Sony having a very good focusing system, and maybe this is just you a better photographer, but there were several times where I look over and you had shots that were like, I was like, I didn't get that. We both were photographing like the same puffin, came by the same way. And so even though we talk about gear and I get excited about gear and I spend a lot of money on new gear, these older cameras are very, very capable, and it's more so about getting out and experiencing some of this stuff than always having the latest and greatest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What you didn't see was the 2,700 photos that were atrocious. Really,
those two.
I can't blame the camera for one iota. It was my own fault. So I think if you compare apples to apples here, you probably had a lot more better shots than I did. But So thank you for the compliment, though.
You're very welcome. Well deserved. All right. And on that note, I think we're going to start to wrap up. I want to just show Krystal's Instagram for just a moment because I love it. Full of beautiful children. As you said, you captured the breakfast the other day, but full of beautiful, beautiful children. And Krystal, you've started to post some learning tutorials through Instagram as well.
Yeah, I just thought, what's another way I can be active on Instagram? And I know, I get a lot of questions in my DMs, people who are still new to photography, and they asked me to mentor them. And so I was like, this could probably be helpful to someone. I really hate, I'm not a fan of my voice, but I was like, let me put myself out there and just help others, So I was thinking about doing this once a week, just little tips, maybe 5 minutes at the most.
I love it.
So
awesome.
That's the idea I came up with a couple weeks ago.
Awesome. So that's great. So you can follow Krystal right there. And as I said, she's linked down below, and you'll get some tips. Plus you get, as I said, once again, lots of beautiful pictures of these children. So
thank you.
That's
You're
awesome.
Very welcome. Very well. Krystal, thanks so much for giving us time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I was a bit distracted today, but I apologize for that.
Hey, life is real, and that's totally fine. Steve, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I really appreciate it. You, of course, can follow Steve. He posts on Instagram occasionally.
I know. I will. I was telling Toby last week I couldn't make the show. I've just gotten absolutely slammed. I mean, this is a great problem. I'm super excited. but I had, like 4 shoots last week, and I've just been picked up by Cincinnati Stair and Handrail Company, which, this dawned on me. I was texting Toby about this. Like, I never had thought about the vertical markets that exist for photography within certain realms. I've been a real estate photographer for a number of years, and I got this call from a marketing firm that had seen my work, and they said, we have a company called Cincinnati Stair and Handrail that we represent, and we need a photographer to go photograph these high-end staircases once they're installed. I'm like, this is great. And it sounds like they've got a ton of work for me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't sit in on the show last week, so I apologize for that. But that's kind of what's been just happening between that and then, the grandkids and the puppy and stuff. I just don't seem
to. No, I think that's great. I'm glad you brought it up. I meant to kind of both congratulate you and ask you a little bit about that if you wanted to talk. It's one of those aspects of photography, of all of these alternative channels of making a living beyond, I think, what we so often traditionally think of. Like, I got to be a portraiture or weddings or real estate. But within that, there's so many options.
Yeah, that's why I bring it up, because I hadn't even thought about that type of thing. And it was the marketing firm that said, Steve, this could actually lead to some other jobs. I mean, there's people that are doing other installations within homes, cabinets, and doors, and all this stuff, especially with custom homes, where they have a website and they want their portfolio to look nice and stuff. And here's this guy who's used to shooting interiors of homes and working with angles and stuff that can do that. So you just never know who's going to see your work. It turned out this home that I shot, the owner of the home that was selling it was there when I was shooting for the realtor, and her mother-in-law saw the photographs that I did. It hit the market. It sold a day later. She loved the photographs. Well, it turns out she works for a marketing company, and they were looking for a photographer. So it was just one of these kind of freakish things. But it just got me thinking, like, there are these little vertical markets that exist all over the place that we can do as photographers.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm plugging Steve's Instagram, but you go there, you get to his website as well, where he has some fantastic work, and you can see his real estate work as well. So
I would just drive people to stevescurich.com. You can link to Instagram from there. I'm just not that active on Instagram, but I'll work on that. I have been keeping my website pretty well up to date, so that's probably a good place to just see my stuff.
That's right. And also just quick thanks to Drew, who had to go, but photorec.tv/Drew will take you to his YouTube channel, and his A1 review video will drop tomorrow, full of fantastic fun stuff. And if you have any interest in time-lapse, I would go check that out there as well. And so thank him for being on. Roy, thank you. Roy has been in our chat very nicely, just kind of keeping track of everything and sending out nice comments from time to time. And you can follow Roy at his Instagram. Right.
Do we have questions in there?
Here. Nope, we don't have any today. Or there were some that got answered as long as we went. The people that then we have to just talk about it.
Okay, I think you covered that, but I missed it.
Yeah. No, worth checking. Okay. Hey, folks watching, thank you so much. If you haven't already, give this show a quick thumbs up. And if you're watching and you're not a subscriber, that's always nice as well. Thank us for our time. And, of course, go follow Krystal and Steve and check out their websites. So thank you both so much. And we'll be back again next week. Bye-bye.